Good evening from the national headquarters of RT America in Washington, D.C. I'm Michele Greenstein, filling in for Rick Sanchez. In just days, Iran may be in violation of the nuclear agreement. Iran's Atomic Energy Organization said its uranium stockpile limit could be exceeded within just 10 days. Now, this is a limit imposed on Iran by the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, also known as the Iran nuclear deal. Under the deal, Iran can keep no more than 300 kilograms of uranium, enriched at no higher than 3.67%. This is far below the 90% level considered weapons-grade uranium. But now, Iran says it may need uranium enriched at 5% for nuclear power plants. It also says it may need to enrich to 20% for a research reactor. Here's the spokesman for Iran's Atomic Energy Agency today.
Regarding increasing our 3.67 enriched uranium, we have considered various scenarios. This could be from 3.68% up to any other percentage. Each percentage depends on conditions. It is decided based on the country's needs. Our country easily needs 20%.
20%. That's considered highly enriched by the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. But let's take a step back, because this story of Iran saying it won't comply with the nuclear deal anymore is getting quite a bit of coverage. It plays well into the idea, the long-standing narrative, right, that Iran is a threat to the U.S. But what gets less coverage is the context and the reason Iran would even threaten such a thing. The JCPOA is basically this. Iran agrees to stop enriching uranium at high levels, and in exchange, it gets international sanctions relief. But last year, the U.S. unilaterally pulled out from this deal and renewed its sanctions on Iran's oil sector. But since some allies heavily relied on buying Iranian oil, the U.S. made temporary waivers to let allies escape these penalties. These waivers just expired. So that's what Iran is reacting to when it says it may lift this cap on uranium enrichment. That's what Iranian President Hassan Rouhani anticipated in April, when he said the remaining JCPOA signatories, China, France, Germany, Russia, and the UK, had 60 days to act on their promises to protect Iran's oil sector, which, by the way, is Iran's main source of revenue. Essentially, Iran, threatened by the possibility of even less countries purchasing their oil, is making a threat themselves. It's saying, keep your promise. Protect our economic interests, or there's no reason for us to be in this deal anymore. And let's not forget the context in which this deal was made in the first place. Washington has planned to take down the Iranian government for years. You could say the U.S. has never really forgiven the Iranian people for their anti-U.S., anti-imperialist revolution in 1979. You could even argue that, despite corporate media's attempt to paint Trump and Obama as diametrically opposed, Obama's role in the 2015 JCPOA works right into this plan. Take a look at this 2009 paper by the Brookings Institution, a D.C. think tank with influence on both the U.S. government and U.S. corporate media. For those who favor regime change or military attack on Iran, the ideal scenario in this case would be that the U.S. and the international community present a package of positive inducements so enticing that the Iranian citizenry would support the deal, only to have the regime reject it. The best way to maximize support is to strike only when there's widespread conviction that the Iranians were given but then rejected a superb offer. One so good that only a regime determined to acquire nuclear weapons and acquire them for the wrong reasons would turn it down. Under those circumstances, the U.S. or Israel could portray its operations as taken in sorrow, not anger, and at least some in the international community would conclude that Iran, quote-unquote, brought it upon it themselves. Now, take this strategy and put it together with the news that Iran will resume high-level uranium enrichment. Put it together with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's recent brag that, quote, the Trump administration has taken Iran's oil exports to historic lows. And with National Security Advisor John Bolton's recent statement that, quote, America's declared policy should be ending Iran's 1979 Islamic Revolution. You'll reach this conclusion. It was never about Iran's nuclear weapons. After all, Iran never had a nuclear weapon, and for some reason we, the U.S., are involved in making the rules despite the fact that we're the only nation to actually drop nuclear weapons on civilians. No, it's never been about nuclear weapons. It's always been about weakening Iran in any way possible and using the pretext of nuclear weapons of national security to do so. It's the News with Rick Sanchez, where we question narratives because we believe it's time to do news again.
I'm Rick Sanchez. You found us on YouTube, and that's awesome. But you know what? I'm also live every night at 7 and 8 p.m. Eastern on DirecTV and Dish and cable and satellite, the RT app, and Pluto TV. I'll see you there.